The business dinner was at Morton's Steakhouse in Manhattan. Dad's quarterly networking event where he brought together his corporate friends and business associates. He'd insisted I come, though he'd made it clear I was only invited because Mom had guilted him into it. "It'll be good for you to meet successful people," he'd said on the phone. "Maybe someone can help you find a real career." I was 27 years old. I'd been running my logistics software company for 5 years. But to Dad, if you didn't work in an office wearing a suit, you weren't successful. I showed up in dark jeans, a black turtleneck and boots. Practical, comfortable. The kind of outfit I wore when I was visiting warehouses or meeting with operations managers. Dad's face tightened when he saw me at the restaurant entrance. "That's what you're wearing? Nina, this is a professional dinner. I'm dressed fine. You look like you're going to unload trucks." "Sometimes I do unload trucks. When I need to understand the workflow." He closed his eyes briefly as if praying for patience. "Please tell me you're not going to talk about your warehouse job tonight." "It's not a warehouse job. It's a software company that optimizes logistics operations." "Right. Your company." He made air quotes. "Just try not to embarrass me, okay?" We walked into the private dining room where 8 people were already seated. Dad's usual crowd: corporate executives, finance guys, a few lawyers. My sister Jessica was there too, 29 and working as a marketing director at a luxury brand. She was in full corporate armor. Designer suit, expensive jewelry, perfect makeup. She looked me up and down and smirked. "Casual Friday came early this week?" "It's Tuesday." Exactly my point. Dad started making introductions as we took our seats. "This is my youngest daughter, Nina. He's between opportunities right now. I run a logistics software company," I corrected quietly. "She works at warehouses," Dad clarified to the table, his tone apologetic. "We're hoping she'll transition to something more professional soon." One of his friends, a man in his 50s named Robert, smiled politely. "What kind of work do you do at the warehouses?" "I don't work at warehouses. I develop software that optimizes supply chain operations. We work with warehouses, distribution centers, fulfillment operations." "She helps them organize inventory," Dad interrupted. "It's entry-level logistics work." I could have corrected him. Explained that my company had 127 employees, $340 million in annual revenue, and clients that included 3 of the 5 largest retailers in North America. But I'd learned over 5 years that Dad didn't want to hear it. He decided when I dropped out of Columbia Business School that I was a failure. Nothing I said would change his mind. Jessica leaned over to whisper loudly to the woman next to her. "She's been doing this warehouse thing for years. Mom and Dad are mortified." "I can hear you," I said calmly. "Good. Maybe you'll finally get the hint." The waiters brought appetizers. The conversation shifted to stocks, real estate, business deals. I ate my salad quietly, checking my phone periodically for updates from my CTO about the system deployment we were managing tonight. "Nina, phone's away," Dad said sharply. "It's rude." "I'm working." "You're at a dinner." "I'm monitoring a major deployment for a client. We're implementing new software across 47 distribution centers tonight." Robert raised an eyebrow. 47 centers? That's a significant operation. It's the 4th largest retailer in the country. The deployment has to be coordinated precisely or it could cost them millions in lost productivity. "Nina has an active imagination," Jessica said with a laugh. "She's been claiming to run this huge company for years, but she works out of her apartment and drives a Honda. I work out of an office in Long Island City. 12,000 square feet. And I drive a Honda because it's reliable." "Sure you do," Jessica said. "Just like you manage teams and consult with Fortune 500 companies." I set down my fork carefully. "Why would I lie about that?" "Because you're embarrassed about your actual job?" One of the lawyers spoke up. "What's the name of your company, Nina?" "Flow State Systems." He pulled out his phone, typed briefly, then stopped. His eyebrows rose. "The Flow State Systems? The logistics optimization platform?" "Yes. My firm represented one of your competitors in an acquisition last year. They were bought specifically because they couldn't compete with your technology." He looked at Dad. "Your daughter founded Flow State?" Dad's smile was frozen. "Nina's been working on some software project." FlowState did $340 million in revenue last year, the lawyer continued, still scrolling on his phone. They're the leading platform for warehouse automation and supply chain optimization. Nina, you're the founder. Founder and CEO. The table had gone completely silent. Jessica was staring at me. That's not, you don't. I started it 5 years ago, I said calmly. We began with small distribution centers, proved the ROI, then scaled to larger operations. We now work with 18 of the 50 largest retailers in North America. Dad's friend Robert was on his phone now too. There's an article here from Supply Chain Quarterly. It says FlowState has revolutionized logistics software. And he looked up at me. It says the CEO is Nina Brennan. That's you. Yes. But you work in warehouses, Dad said weakly. I visit warehouses to understand operations firsthand. I also spend time in our office managing a team of 127 people. Software engineers, data scientists, operations specialists, sales team, customer success. 127 employees? Robert interrupted. Nina, what's your company valued at? I hesitated. The valuation wasn't public yet. We were in the middle of Series C negotiations and the numbers were under NDA. I can't disclose that right now. But there is a valuation. You've raised institutional funding. Series A was $12 million from Lightspeed Venture Partners. Series B was $45 million from Sequoia Capital. Series C is closing next month. The lawyer was scrolling rapidly. Sequoia Capital invested in you? Nina, they're one of the top VC firms in the world. They backed Google, Apple, Oracle. I know who they are. They did extensive due diligence before investing. Jessica's face had gone pale. You raised $45 million? That was Series B. Series C is significantly larger. How much larger? Robert asked. I can't say. It's not public yet. Dad was still frozen, staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Nina, if this is true, why didn't you tell us? I tried. For 5 years. Every time I explained what I was building, you called it a hobby or a phase. You told your friends I was working entry-level warehouse jobs. You said I was between opportunities. But you never showed us proof. You never asked to see proof. You saw that I visited warehouses and drove a Honda and decided I was failing. You never once asked to visit the office, meet my team, or review the financial statements. Because you were always so secretive. Because every time I mentioned FlowState, someone made a joke about it. You called it my warehouse thing and changed the subject. You told me to get a real job. Why would I keep trying to prove myself to people who'd already decided I was unsuccessful? The TV mounted in the corner of the private dining room had been playing financial news on mute. Suddenly, someone turned up the volume. And now we go to our exclusive interview with one of tech's most exciting young CEOs, the anchor was saying. I glanced up at the screen and my stomach dropped. It was me. The interview had been filmed 2 weeks ago in our Long Island City office. Bloomberg Technology had done a profile on logistics software companies, and they'd wanted to feature FlowState. I'd agreed to a 15-minute interview, assuming it would air late at night or online only. But here it was. Prime time. On the TV in the room where my family was currently processing the revelation that I wasn't actually a warehouse worker. Meet Nina Brennan, the anchor continued, CEO and founder of FlowState Systems, the logistics software company that's transforming supply chain operations across North America. The screen cut to me in our office, standing in front of our operations center where real-time data from hundreds of warehouses displayed on massive monitors. We started FlowState because traditional warehouse management systems weren't keeping pace with modern logistics demands, my recorded self was saying. E-commerce had exploded, but the software running distribution centers was still designed for the pre-internet era. We saw an opportunity to completely reimagine how inventory flows through supply chains. The Bloomberg interviewer asked about our growth. The camera panned across our office. Software engineers at standing desks, data scientists reviewing algorithms, operations managers on calls with clients. We've grown from 2 people in a shared office space to 127 employees across 3 offices, I said in the interview. Our software now manages over $12 billion in annual inventory flow for our clients. $12 billion. Dad whispered at our table. On screen, the interviewer was asking about funding. You've raised significant venture capital from top-tier firms. Can you talk about your latest round? My recorded self smiled. We're currently closing our Series C round. We can't disclose the exact amount yet, but it's the largest logistics software funding round of the year. It values FlowState at just over $1.3 billion. The table erupted. Billion. Jessica's voice cracked. Did she say billion? On screen, the interview continued. At 27, you're one of the youngest founders to reach unicorn status. That's a $1 billion valuation for our viewers. What's next for FlowState? We're expanding internationally. We have pilots running in the UK and Germany. We're also developing AI-powered predictive analytics that will allow warehouses to anticipate demand shifts weeks in advance. The goal is to eliminate inefficiency entirely from supply chains. The interviewer leaned forward. Your company is now worth $1.3 billion. You own 68% of the shares. That makes your net worth roughly $880 million. How does it feel to be approaching billionaire status at 27? I watched my own face on screen. Calm, professional, slightly uncomfortable with the wealth question. The valuation is exciting because it means we can invest in the technology and expand our team. The personal wealth aspect is secondary to the mission. We're trying to solve real problems for companies that move physical goods. Every percentage point of efficiency we add to their operations means lower costs for consumers and less waste in the system. The interview concluded with footage of one of our client warehouses. Automated systems, optimized workflows, our software managing everything seamlessly. Nina Brennan of FlowState Systems, the anchor said as the segment ended. One of tech's rising stars, proving that the future of innovation isn't just in social media and consumer apps. It's in the unsexy but essential work of moving products efficiently. The TV was muted again. Nobody at our table spoke. Robert broke the silence first. Nina, did that interview just say you're worth $880 million? On paper. Until the Series C closes and the valuation is official. You're almost a billionaire, the lawyer said slowly. At 27. The company is valued at over $1 billion. I own 68%, so yes, my stake is worth roughly that amount. Dad was still staring at the now muted TV. That was you, on Bloomberg. Talking about your billion-dollar company. Yes. And we had no idea. I tried to tell you. Jessica found her voice, though it shook. You let us think you were working in warehouses. I do work in warehouses. I spend at least one day a week in client facilities, understanding their operations. But I also run a technology company with 127 employees and $340 million in annual revenue. Both things are true. But you never corrected us. I did. Constantly. You didn't want to hear it. Robert was scrolling on his phone again. Nina, there are dozens of articles about you. TechCrunch, Wall Street Journal, Forbes. They're calling you one of the most successful young founders in enterprise software. I'm aware. Forbes has you on their 30 under 30 list for enterprise technology. You won Logistics CEO of the Year last month. You've been a keynote speaker at 3 major industry conferences this year alone. Dad's face had gone from white to red. Why didn't you tell me any of this? I did, Dad. Christmas, I mentioned the Forbes list. You said it must be for a different Nina Brennan because your daughter worked in warehouses. At Thanksgiving, I talked about the conference keynote. You said it was probably a small regional event. At Mom's birthday, I mentioned we'd raised Series B funding. You changed the subject to Jessica's promotion. That's not... He stopped. Did I really? Every time. For 5 years. Jessica was reading from her own phone now, her face getting paler. There's an article here from Fortune. Nina Brennan, the warehouse worker who built a billion-dollar software empire. It says you spent a year working in distribution centers before founding FlowState. You actually did work in warehouses. I did. I needed to understand the problems firsthand before I could build software to solve them. I worked night shifts at 3 different warehouses, took detailed notes on every inefficiency, interviewed hundreds of workers about their challenges. That's actually brilliant, Robert said slowly. Most tech founders never leave their offices. You went directly to the source. It seemed obvious to me. How could I build better software without understanding the actual work? The lawyer was shaking his head in apparent awe. Nina, do you know how rare this is? A 27-year-old building a profitable, high-growth enterprise software company in an unsexy industry? Most founders your age are burning through VC money trying to build the next social media app. You've built something that actually generates massive revenue. Logistics software isn't glamorous, but it's essential. Every product people buy online passes through systems like ours. Dad's phone started ringing. He glanced at it, then looked at me with a strange expression. That's Charles Morrison. He's on the board at Columbia Business School. The school I dropped out of? He probably saw the Bloomberg interview. Dad answered the call. Charles, hello. Yes, that was my daughter. Yes, flow state systems. No, I didn't realize the scale either. He listened for a moment, his face getting redder. She what? A major donation? How much? He went silent. 7 figures? For the entrepreneurship program. He looked at me. When did you? Last year, I said quietly. They asked if I'd contribute to the new entrepreneurship center. I wrote a check for $1.2 million. Dad covered the phone. You donated over $1 million to Columbia? They're building a center to help students who want to start companies instead of following traditional paths. It seemed important. He went back to the phone call. Yes, Charles. I'm very proud. Yes, we should definitely talk about having her speak to students. I'll check with her and get back to you. He hung up and stared at me. The dean of Columbia Business School wants you to give the keynote at their graduation ceremony next spring. I know. They reached out last month. I haven't decided yet. Jessica set down her phone. How is this possible? How did you build $1 billion company in 5 years without any of us noticing? You weren't paying attention. You decided I was a failure because I dropped out of business school and got my hands dirty in warehouses. Nothing I said could change your minds because you'd already written the story about who I was. But if we'd known, would it have changed anything? Would you have treated me differently if I'd shown you the Forbes list or the funding announcements or the client roster? Or would you have found other reasons to dismiss it until some external authority like Bloomberg confirmed I was legitimate? Silence. I think, Robert said carefully, they would have dismissed it. People usually do when success doesn't look the way they expect it to. Dad's hands were shaking slightly. Nina, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I completely misjudged everything. I thought you were wasting your potential. I know. If I'd known you were building this, you should have believed me when I told you. You shouldn't have needed Bloomberg to confirm it. You're right. You're absolutely right. He looked around the table at his business friends, all of whom were now looking at me with respect and fascination. Everyone, I need to apologize. I've been telling you all for years that my daughter was struggling working dead-end jobs, refusing to get serious about her career. I was completely wrong. Nina is apparently more successful than everyone at this table combined. Dad, it's not a competition. No, it's important. I need to own this. He turned back to me. I'm proud of you. Not because Bloomberg interviewed you or because you're worth $880 million. I'm proud because you saw a problem, figured out how to solve it, and built something meaningful. And I'm ashamed that I didn't see it until it was on national television. Jessica spoke up quietly. I'm sorry too, Nina. I've been horrible. Calling your work a hobby, mocking you at family dinners, telling people you were unemployed when you couldn't make events. I was jealous of the attention you were getting even though I thought you were failing. Now I realize you were actually succeeding beyond anything I'd ever accomplish. Jess, you're doing great in your career. I'm a marketing director making $180,000 a year. You're about to be a billionaire. There's no comparison. Different paths. Different definitions of success. Robert's phone buzzed. He looked at it and laughed. Nina, I just got a text from the CEO of my company. He saw the Bloomberg interview. He wants to know if you're accepting new clients. He says our logistics operations are a disaster and he'll pay whatever it takes to work with Flow State. Tell him to have his operations team reach out through our website. We evaluate every potential client carefully to make sure we're a good fit. You're going to make him apply through your website? We have a process. Just because he's the CEO of a Fortune 500 company doesn't mean he gets to skip it. The lawyer was grinning now. I like you. You're not impressed by titles or wealth. You just care about the work. That's what matters. My phone buzzed. A text from my CTO, deployment complete. All 47 centers online. Zero errors. Client is ecstatic. This is going in the case studies. I smiled and typed back, excellent work. Tell the team they're getting bonuses. This was flawless. Good news. Robert asked. The deployment I mentioned earlier. It's complete. 47 distribution centers running on our software with zero downtime. The client will be able to process Black Friday orders 30% more efficiently this year. That's happening right now. While we're at dinner. The work doesn't stop for dinner. My team's been monitoring the deployment for the past 3 hours. But it's finished now and they crushed it. Dad was quiet for a moment. Then, can I visit your office sometime? See what you've built. You want to visit? I want to understand what you do. Really understand it. Not from Bloomberg or Forbes but from you. I should have asked years ago. Hey. Thursday afternoon works if you're free. I can give you a full tour, introduce you to the team, show you the software in action. I'd like that. Jessica raised her hand tentatively. Can I come too? Sure. I'm sorry I called you embarrassing. You're the opposite of embarrassing. You're incredible. The rest of dinner was surreal. Dad's business friends peppered me with questions about flow state, venture capital, growth strategies, hiring, technology trends. They treated me like a peer, or more accurately like someone they wanted to learn from. Robert asked if I'd speak at his company's leadership conference. The lawyer asked if I needed legal counsel for the Series C closing. Another executive asked if I'd consider joining his company's board as an advisor. I politely declined most of it. I had enough on my plate. When dinner ended, Dad walked me to my Honda in the parking garage. That's really your car? He asked. Yes. You could afford anything. A Tesla, a Mercedes, whatever you want. I don't need anything else. The Honda is reliable and efficient. It gets me where I need to go. That's very mature for 27. I learned it from watching you actually. You always taught us not to waste money on status symbols. To value substance over appearance. Remember? He smiled sadly. I taught you that, then spent 5 years judging you for living by it. Yeah. I'm sorry, Nina. Really, truly sorry. I know. And I appreciate it. But Dad, the apology doesn't erase 5 years of dismissal. It's going to take time to rebuild trust. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. I unlocked the Honda. Start by actually visiting the office on Thursday. Learn about what we do. Meet my team. See the work firsthand instead of just reading articles about it. I'll be there. I drove back to my apartment in Astoria. A modest one-bedroom that cost $2,400 a month. I could have afforded a penthouse in Manhattan or a house in the suburbs. But this place was close to the office, quiet and perfectly adequate. The Bloomberg interview was already generating reactions. My phone was full of messages from investors, clients, potential hires, journalists requesting follow-up interviews. Our marketing director had texted that website traffic was up 400% and we'd received 50 new client inquiries in 2 hours. But the message that mattered most was from my CTO. The team is celebrating at a bar near the office. You should come. They want to thank you for the bonuses. And for building something we're all proud to work on. I smiled and texted back, give me 20 minutes. First round is on me. I changed into jeans and a t-shirt. My actual casual wear, not the professional version I'd worn to dinner, and headed to the bar. My team was there. Software engineers, data scientists, operations specialists, salespeople. The people who'd believed in flow state when it was just an idea, who'd worked crazy hours to make it real, who'd trusted me when I was a 22-year-old dropout with no track record. They cheered when I walked in. To Nina, someone shouted. The warehouse worker who built a unicorn. Everyone laughed and raised their glasses. My CTO pulled me aside. How did dinner go with your family? They saw the Bloomberg interview while we were at the restaurant. Oh God. How bad was it? My dad's friend asked if I was worth $880 million. My sister realized she'd been calling me embarrassing while I was building a billion-dollar company. It was surreal. But vindicating? A little. Mostly just sad. They should have believed me years ago. He nodded. For what it's worth, we believed you. Everyone on this team believed in the vision before Bloomberg, before Forbes, before the billion-dollar valuation. We knew you were building something special. Thank you. That means more than any news interview. I stayed at the bar until midnight celebrating with my team. These people, who'd trusted me when my family didn't, who'd worked impossible hours to make Flow State succeed, who'd believed in logistics software when everyone else was chasing sexier industries. They were my real validation. When I finally got home, I found a text from Mom. Your father told me about dinner. About the interview. About everything. Nina, I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have believed you. Can we talk this week? I typed, Thursday after Dad's office visit. You can both come. Her response was immediate. Thank you. We love you. We're so proud of you. We should have been proud all along. I set the phone down and looked around my modest apartment. The same place I'd lived for 3 years, long after I could have afforded better. I'd stayed because it was practical, because the money was better spent on the business, because luxury didn't matter as much as the mission. Tomorrow I'd be back in warehouses, observing operations, talking to workers, understanding the problems our next software update needed to solve. I'd be in the office working with my team. I'd be on calls with clients, discussing their challenges and how we could help. The Bloomberg interview would generate more attention, more opportunities, more validation from people who'd dismissed me before. But the real work, the daily, unglamorous work of building better logistics software, that would continue regardless. Because success wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about solving real problems for real clients. It was about building a team that believed in the mission. It was about staying true to the work even when nobody else saw the value. The Bloomberg interview was nice. The billion-dollar valuation was exciting. The vindication with my family was satisfying. But none of it compared to the moment when a warehouse manager called to say our software had saved his team 3 hours of work that day. Or when a distribution center coordinator thanked us for catching an inventory error that would have cost them thousands. Or when a logistics director said our system had made his team's impossible job finally manageable. That was the real success. And I'd known it all along. Even when nobody else did.